Today, we are going to be contemplating the four thoughts. I'm on a new production platform here, so sorry, I'm still learning my way around on how to go live on this. All right, so let's just take a moment to connect with our compassionate intention for being here today. We're here so that we can learn how to be more present and compassionate for all beings. So just take a moment. All right, and we are going to start with some opening prayers. These are, I believe that there's a link to these in the description of the video. The first one we'll do 3 times. Organ yogi namjan sambamage sadompola yatsan chogi ngorupe pamajong me jesurak kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesu dal druki jinjilo chia sheksu so guru pema seri home. Organ yogi numjan sambamage sadompola yatsan chogi nordrupne pemajong ne jesurang kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesu dal druki jinjilo chia sheksu so guru pema seri home. Organ yogi numjan sam pemage sadompola yatsan chogi ngodrupne pemajong ne jesurang kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesu dal druki jinjilo chia sheksu so guru pema seri home. These next ones we'll do 1 time each. Kunzando samgarab shiri sing pema kara jepani shuna soso nimna tatan katsaso katala manamla sowadam ya okmen chuki yinki podrana dusum sange konge ngolonye rangsem choko nunton tonsepe tawe lama namla sowadam. Sashi pochu chuching me to cham re robling jini de kempadi sange zingdu mikte polwahi joko nam da jingna chuparsho cham guru ratna mandala putsa mega samudra saparana samae ahum. Semchen namki sampadang loyi jejak jitawar jechon tomol tepai joki kolo kordu so. All right, so I don't know about you, but personally this week has felt like an emotional roller coaster. And I'm also feeling pretty burned out from being on screens all the time. I'm on a lot of Zoom meetings during the week, and then there's Zoom social hangouts and watching Netflix and YouTube and constantly refreshing the Google results to see who's won the election. And then even our religious practices are happening online. So lately it just seems like life is just all screens all the time. And it's a lot for our brains to take in. It's a lot to be absorbing all of this information and to be on all the time. So I'm kind of feeling like my brain's burned out and like I'm just kind of reached my max of the amount of information I can passively consume and the amount of screen time. I'm reaching my limits for screen time. So I thought you might also be feeling the same way. So today I'm going to try to talk a little bit less, and we're going to spend a little bit more time in meditation. I think that's, I don't know, I think that's what the moment calls for. So we're going to start with a brief stabilizing the mind meditation. Meditation has become very popular, and these days it seems like just about anyone can put out a shingle as a meditation instructor or mindfulness teacher. I work in the mental health industry, so my own personal hell is being in meetings that start with mindfulness meditations that are anything but mindful, like all the time. Because the therapy industry has definitely picked up mindfulness as their new trend. So often popular meditation instruction is more like a choose your own adventure novel than a practice in taming your mind. I've been to so many mindfulness classes that are like, you can have your eyes open or eyes closed. You can be sitting up or lying down, or you can be standing if that's more comfortable for you. You can meditate in a box. You can meditate with a fox, whatever you prefer. During these few moments of silence, there will be absolutely no silence because I will continue to talk and tell you all the things you could be thinking of in case you run out of any ideas. You could check in with your knees. You can ask your feet how they feel about the floor. You could check in with your breath if you feel like it, but if you'd rather think about the birds outside, you could do that too. And that's not meditation. That's doing whatever I feel like doing, which is our habit anyway. We don't need to practice that. We don't need anyone to narrate what we already do. It's not helpful. Sometimes it can feel relaxing to have someone sportscast your own mental discursiveness, basically, just narrating all of the distracted places that your minds go, but it's not actually helpful. That's already our habit to just think about whatever we want, to think about the birds, to think about you don't need to give yourself permission to think about your aching knees during meditation. When your knees ache, you're going to think about them, but that's not what we're doing in meditation. The Buddha taught that the way in which we focus our minds is important. We can follow the Buddha's methods to train our minds, which means that we become the boss of our own minds and are no longer at the whim of our thoughts and emotions. It doesn't mean that we don't have thoughts and emotions, just that they don't control us. We learn to see them for what they are. They are illusory and they are insubstantial. So today we're going to focus on a few foundational methods to train our minds. And the reason why we need training and how to train our minds is that our habit is doing whatever we want. So this actually is not do whatever you want time. We're going to give our minds tasks to do so that they can focus. And that's not our habit. Meditation is the natural state of mind when it is relaxed, stable, and open. When our mind is calm and settled, there is a spaciousness that allows time between action and reaction. So normally our minds aren't like that. Our minds are agitated and wound up and out of control and just chase our thoughts and emotions everywhere they go. The point of meditation is to create space in our minds. And when we create space in our minds, it helps us to balance our emotions. Those emotions come up and they're not just like right up in our phobic with our emotions. We actually have some space for our emotions to exist in. And so they lose their urgency to an extent. And it doesn't become you don't have as much of a pressing need to chase them and do what they say. So we practice meditation to train our minds to be calm and relaxed, yet also alert and wakeful. We're not just trying to relax. We're not just trying to tell ourselves a nice, relaxing story so we can go to sleep. There's a lot of meditation instruction that's like that. It's actually relaxation exercises and not meditation. Or guided visualizations that are just relaxing. If you want to listen to a kid's story before you go to sleep, that is a nice way to fall asleep. But meditation is not about sleeping. Meditation is actually about training our minds to be awake and restful. So if we want to generate bodhicitta, the awakened mind of wisdom and compassion, we first have to calm our minds. And that creates a foundation in which we can actually arise wisdom and compassion. If our minds are just always busy and agitated and distracted, it's like, oh, let me do this compassionate thing, squirrel. Oh, maybe I should care about others, squirrel. But if you can actually just create a foundation of relaxed awareness, of focus, and a mind that is not so tense and tight and agitated, it creates an environment in which you actually can start to develop wisdom and compassion. So let's start with that. I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes today. And what we're going to do is sit up. You can be in a chair or on the ground, legs crossed is fine. And just sit up straight. Make sure your neck is straight. And relax your shoulders. Relax into your seat. If your clothing is tight, you might want to loosen it. And place your hands in your lap, gently relaxed. You can put your right hand over your left hand with your thumbs touching, and place that right below your navel. You can also just have your hands on your knees, either one. And make sure you're keeping your shoulders open and your posture good. And then we're going to keep our eyes open, slightly open, and your gaze is going to be kind of following the line of your nose to a midpoint, just kind of down in front of you. And then just place the tip of your tongue right behind your teeth, like that. So watching the breath, we're going to watch our breath in this meditation. We're just going to keep our minds focused on our breath. And this is very relaxing. So if you start finding yourself a little too relaxed, you can raise your gaze a little bit. You can open your eyes a little bit more. And if you find yourself too agitated and too wound up, you can lower your gaze a little bit more. So your eyes are a little bit more closed. You're going to keep your eyes open, but the degree to which your eyes are open and closed can help you kind of determine, you can use that to help to balance how awake or relaxed you are. Another thing that makes sure that we stay awake is by staying strong in our compassionate commitment to this practice. The fact that we are meditating not just to relax ourselves or to have a fun experience, but because we want to learn how to stabilize our minds so that we can adopt positive qualities and really work with our minds to become more generous and compassionate and helpful and be of service to others. We want to be able to our practice is not just for our own benefit, it's for the benefit of others. So when we stay strong in that compassionate intention, that will help to keep our focus as well. Okay, so we're in our meditation posture, sitting straight up, tongue behind your teeth, eyes are open and relaxed. We're just going to bring our attention to our breath. And just breathe normally. And don't try to control your breath at all. Just breathe naturally and put the most gossamer thin attention on your breath. It's like taking your pulse. You don't put any pressure on it. You just observe it. You're not grabbing onto your breath and strangling it. You're just gently observing it. The gossamer thin attention. Your attention is like a feather, gently riding on the surface of your breath. When thoughts come up, as they will, thoughts will come up and they'll try to distract you and entice you away from your breath. That's to be expected. But whatever comes up, just come back to your breath. Just drop it and come back. Your meditation is not lost by hearing your thoughts, but by following them down the road. So whenever a thought comes up, just drop it. You can let it pop like a bubble in a pond. Or, if you really have trouble letting go of a thought, you can imagine spaghetti tongs, picking it up and dropping it, or you can imagine scissors, cutting it. But if you need those visualization aids, you can use those. Otherwise, you can just, as soon as you notice that a thought has carried you away, just drop it and come back to your breath. That's it. So we're going to meditate for 5 minutes with just the most gossamer thin attention on your breath. that is the stabilizing the mind meditation. That's the first part of the stabilizing the mind meditation. Judsoma's book, Stabilizing the Mind, it's actually a progression in the way that you do this meditation, but that's the first step. And you start with that, with focusing the mind, getting really good at that before you move on to the next steps. That meditation creates a foundation for really any type of spiritual practice that you do. Another important foundation, and the rest we're going to focus on for the rest of our class, is the contemplation of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma are called the common foundation because they're common to all Buddhist traditions. Contemplating them is a traditional method for preparing oneself to practice the Dharma. The Dharma means truth, so these could also be called the 4 minds that turn the mind to truth. These truths apply to all of existence, whether you believe in Buddhism or not, and they can be observed by anyone, much like the law of gravity. And so what we're mainly going to be doing today is observing these for ourselves. I'll just tell you a little bit about each one of them first. So the first of the 4 thoughts is the precious human rebirth. So the 4 thoughts that turn the mind are precious human rebirth, impermanence, karma, and the suffering of cyclic existence. So the first thought that we contemplate is one's precious human rebirth. This precious human rebirth provides freedom and leisure to engage in spiritual practice that cannot be found in other realms of existence, such as the hells or the animal realm. So what distinguishes a precious human rebirth from a regular human rebirth is the freedom and opportunity to engage in spiritual practice. There are many human beings who lack the opportunity to use this life to its ultimate capacity, and many who cannot use this life for anything other than their immediate survival needs. But we are incredibly fortunate that we have the freedom and opportunity to engage in spiritual practice, to change our bad behavior, to adopt better habits that will benefit ourselves and others well beyond this life. That is like winning the cosmic lottery, and yet we so often take it for granted. The second of the 4 thoughts is impermanence. The Buddha taught that all compounded things are impermanent, and they have no true inherent existence. Our bodies, for instance, are composed of compounded elements, and so they are impermanent because those elements that have been compounded will eventually come apart, and we will die. We like to live in denial of this, ignoring how quickly our lives pass us by, pretending that we'll live forever. But then we'll have something come up in our lives that will suddenly remind us of this truth of impermanence. Maybe a reminder of our own mortality or of someone else's mortality. And our world is just shattered and we suffer greatly because we forgot. We forgot that we're going to die. We forgot that those we love are going to die. We forgot that the seasons change and houses burn down and countries have, changes in leadership and there's all sorts of changes that occur in our lives. And we forget that. We forget the extent to which it happens. Even the impermanence of inanimate objects brings us suffering, like when our car breaks down or something we own is stolen. It's not the impermanence itself that causes us to suffer as much, but it's that we don't expect things to be impermanent. So we form intense attachments to a world that is as illusory as a rainbow. It's kind of like we're children who build sandcastles, and we really invest ourselves. We really invest ourselves in believing in this sandcastle as being lasting and real and permanent. As if our sandcastle has real queens and kings inside, and we really believe that. And we become very attached to this sandcastle. And then when the waves come and wash it away, we cry. But the adults know that the sandcastle is, by its own nature, it's impermanent. It's a sandcastle. So they don't get attached to it in the first place. And they don't suffer when it gets washed away. Contemplating impermanence cuts through that denial and our worldly distractions that keep us from remembering this. And it helps us to recognize the preciousness of every moment so that we can use our time wisely, so that we can actualize the most profound potential of this precious human life, which is to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. Gyaltsen Rinpoche says that because all of these things are impermanent, when you understand the truth of impermanence, naturally the way that you relate to everything will change. Thinking, I want this, I really need to have this or that thing. I want this diamond ring, I want that piece of jewelry. I've got to have this or I won't be happy. I can't be satisfied until I have it. The mind force behind that attachment and compulsion, that attraction to objects, will be cut off from the base if you hold the truth of impermanence in your mind stream. The third thought that turns the mind is karma. And Khenpo Tenzin Norgay says, karma is the law of nature, the law of cause and effect. It is the unavoidable reality of the universe. Karma is just a way of expressing how our mind functions. If our mind has the tendency to harm other sentient beings, for example, that is a negative state of mind. With that negative state of mind, you do actions either through body, speech, or mind to harm someone. And those actions result in negative karma. Similarly, if your mind has a tendency to help other sentient beings, and with that positive state of mind, you do actions through your body, speech, or mind to help someone, those actions will result in positive karma. Some people, I know that some people who maybe aren't as familiar with the Buddhist law of karma tend to think that karma is still some kind of like godlike retribution, like that it's like there's some external force that is dropping this karma on you. Like, watch out, you did this, like karma's gonna get you, and there's this like as if there's like a god out there that's going to you broke this rule, so some god is going to punish you, and that karma works in that way. But it doesn't. In Buddhism, we don't have an external creator. We don't believe in an external creator or an external deity. The deities are inseparable with our own mind and our own foundational, our own Buddha nature. They are inseparable. So there's no one coming from outside, throwing bad karma at you or rewarding you with good karma. It's simply a law of the universe, like the law of gravity. If you drop an apple, it falls to the ground, and it's not because there's some god of apples up there that says like, I'm gonna make you fall. It's just what happens. It's gravity. And so that's kind of how karma works too. It's just how it works. Now, karma not only determines our future rebirth as a god or animal or human or hell being, but also what the fabric and detail of our lives will be like. It is responsible for every detail of your experience. Positive karma results in pleasant experiences, and negative karma results in negative experiences. If you awaken the bodhicitta, which is the union of wisdom and compassion, and act from the bodhicitta, then no matter how your actions appear to others, they will bring benefit. So this is where you can have like the crazy yogis who just have attained the bodhicitta, and they act in ways that seem completely nonsensical, or they seem really outlandish, like Talopa eating live fish, and you have these crazy yogis who their actions don't make sense by kind of our conceptual way of looking at things, but because they are completely motivated by the bodhicitta, whatever they are doing brings benefit. So our intention is really our intention. It's like when you're shooting an arrow and you're trying to hit a mark. If your intention is off, it's like your aim is off with that arrow, and you're going to shoot it in the wrong direction. But if your intention is right, if your intention is the bodhicitta, it is the wisdom and compassionate, if it's truly born of wisdom and compassion, then your actions will bring benefit. They will hit the target of benefiting beings. Now, actions driven by bodhicitta result in merit, which is the virtue and positive energy needed to gain a precious human rebirth and attain liberation. And Chagdao Tuku says, a single seed will produce a whole tree with many branches, flowers, and fruit, and each fruit will contain even more seeds. The smallest seed of anger will produce great suffering for ourselves and others. By the same token, even a small act of generosity or compassion will produce great happiness. We usually don't know what will come from the seeds we sow. They lie dormant in the mind for a long time, and when they finally begin to sprout, we have forgotten having planted them at all. Eventually, though, they will bear fruit. So if we want to know what our future will be like, we can just look at our actions right now and look at what seeds we are sowing and think about what that result would be. For instance, if you speak harshly of others, you can expect that others will speak harshly of you. But you also will wind up in a situation where people speak harshly to each other. You'll wind up in environments where that occurs, where people are not getting along, people don't listen to your directions, you tell your kid, do the dishes, they say, no, I don't have to do the dishes. That kind of stuff, that kind of harsh interaction, a discord in your family, things like that. These are caused by our own actions. Killing, if we kill, not only does it shorten our lifespan and create the causes to in future lives to have our lives cut short, it also can result in physical pain, physical injury, physical illness. It can, there are residual effects. Our karmic actions ripple out, and they have gross consequences and they have more subtle consequences. And you see all of the details of your life come from one karmic seed or another. Every single detail of them. A friend of mine recently asked, what is the karmic seed of being born in a land where they change the time zone twice a year? Because I'd like to avoid being born in that land again, which I thought was really fun. I don't know the karmic seed of that, but I would also like to avoid being born in a land where we switch the time zone twice a year. It is already dark out and it's like 5 o'clock. I'd much rather create the causes to be in a sunny place. But that's just personal greed. The next thing we have is suffering of cyclic existence. That's the last of the 4 thoughts. The Buddha didn't teach about the suffering of cyclic existence just to bum us out. It is a real bummer to contemplate, but it's not, we don't contemplate just to bum ourselves out. The reason why the Buddha talked about suffering is the same reason that a doctor would educate you about your illness in order to convince you to take your medicine. If you don't understand that you have diabetes, why on earth would you take insulin shots? No one would do that. You have to really understand what it means to have diabetes and what the effect would be on your body for you not to take those insulin shots. And, you need to understand that in order to take the appropriate medicine. And so that's the way that the Buddha talked about suffering. He wants us to understand what we're in, what we're stuck in, and how to get out. For lifetime after lifetime, we've tried to find fulfillment and happiness by reinforcing the idea of self, the idea of self-nature being inherently real. But focusing on ourselves only increases our attachment and aversion, which ultimately increase our suffering. As Chagdao Tuku says, if self-centeredness produced happiness, we would all be enlightened by now. So we want to believe that we're happy and that we will be, as long as we can maintain our health and our wealth and our societal position and our fame and our reputation and our friends and family. And then we can pretend that we're doing okay. But our happiness is so high maintenance. It's so high maintenance. Any little thing slips. If we get sick or we lose our jobs or we fight with a friend or fight with a loved one, the tenuousness of our temporary comfort and the all-pervasive pain of our existence becomes readily apparent. If there were no cure for suffering, there would be no point in discussing it. But the Buddha taught there is a cure. So when we understand our current condition, we'll understand the urgency of taking appropriate action. And that's why we contemplate the suffering of cyclic existence. Cyclic existence is composed of 6 realms: gods, demigods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and the hell realms. And this cycle of existence is like a closed jar in which all sentient beings are trapped like flies. And when we're born in the higher or lower realms, we're never like whether we're born in the higher or lower realms, whether we're born in the God realms, we're born in the hell realms, we're born in the human realm, no matter what, we're still stuck in the jar, buzzing around. And it's called the cycle of existence because we circle around and around that jar, taking rebirth in one after another of the 6 realms as a result of our actions, whether positive or negative, the actions that are tainted by attachment. That's what keeps us stuck in that jar, circling around and around and around through different types of suffering. In the human realm, we don't have as much suffering as the other realms, so we have more opportunities to practice if we take them. But we still have a good deal of suffering. We have the suffering of change, when a state of happiness suddenly changes into suffering. For instance, if you, there's a great scene in Matilda, the kids' movie Matilda, when this kid steals a slice of chocolate cake from Trunchbull, who's the evil headmaster of the school. And this kid steals a slice of chocolate cake, and so she punishes him by forcing him to eat the entire 3-foot wide cake in front of the whole school. And it's a punishment because, chocolate cake is yummy for a few bites, maybe a slice, maybe 2 slices, delicious. And then after that, it's just a stomach ache. It's awful. You don't want more chocolate cake. So that's an example of the suffering of change. It's not anything that we find in samsara that gives us comfort or happiness. It's not the least bit reliable or consistent. It's not going to give us happiness again and again and again every single day, every single moment. It's not the answer. So we want solid ground to stand on, but everything that we rely on erodes eventually. We rely on our families and friends, but at some point we're going to lose them, or we're going to leave them, or they'll leave us. One of us is going to die. Both of us are going to die, one of us before the other probably, but at some point we're going to have to say goodbye. We rely on our communities, our homes, our jobs. None of those things are consistent or reliable. You definitely see that as soon as this pandemic has definitely shown how many things are unreliable. I was amazed a little while ago, we had a dry ice shortage. It never even entered my mind as a possibility of something that my temporary comfort relied upon, that it relied upon dry ice. And yet suddenly then it was difficult to get groceries because there's no ice to keep it cold, to transport it. So then that means it's difficult to get food. But who knew dry ice was that important? I didn't know that. So there's so many things that we rely on, but they're not stable, they're not consistent. It's, these houses that we're comfortable in will not be here forever. The friendships that we have will not be here forever. Anything that we rely on as giving us joy will not give us ultimate joy, not permanently. There's also suffering atop suffering, the suffering of one bad thing happening after another. Your boyfriend dumps you, you crash your car, your dog dies, that kind of thing. And there's also pervasive suffering, which refers to the fact that we're totally immersed in the causes of suffering. Everything that we enjoy, our phones, our tea, everything. Someone had to pick this tea, and someone had to transport it. And when they picked the tea, there were probably bugs that got. They probably had to use some pesticides to kill the bugs and the plants. That's suffering. The food we eat. You have to till the ground, you have to till the crops, and little rabbits and quails and all sorts of bugs, they die so that we can eat food that's grown in fields. Our phones are made from all sorts of exploitative labor, little children that work in trash heaps extracting minerals so that we can get the answer to the presidential election within 10 seconds. Since everything that we do or enjoy is produced by harmful actions, they can only lead to suffering. And that's the pervasiveness of suffering. Then also, all of us suffer from birth, old age, sickness, and death. That's one of the most obvious ones to observe. We also suffer from the fear of our enemies. We suffer from losing our loved ones. We suffer from getting what we don't want and not getting what we do want. There are so many sufferings in the human realm, and we have the very least amount of suffering, really. I mean, we have the most opportunity for spiritual practice, and compared to the rest of the 6 realms, we're pretty light on the suffering. When you think of the amount of suffering you can see in the human realms, I mean, it really makes you think about how much suffering there must be in these other realms. So when we contemplate these, we understand the depth of our predicament. When we contemplate suffering, we understand we understand, it's like understanding that you're in a burning house. And so, if you don't understand that the house is burning down, you might you think it's just a little hot in here. You try to turn on the AC and make yourself comfortable, but that's not going to do anything. The house is burning down. You have to get out. Like the AC is not going to cut it. You might want to just make yourself some iced tea or something, and no, that's not going to cool you down. The house is burning down. You have to get out of the house. So when we contemplate suffering, we can understand that what we need to do is we need to exit the jar of samsara entirely. So we're going to try contemplating these, and Jitsuma has a quote I want to share about the importance of contemplating these. She says, "The idea is to think of the mind as having the potential, like the earth, to raise the flower of enlightenment. Any field that you look at, unless it's been poisoned in some way, has the potential to grow within it the crop of your choice. In this case, the crop of enlightenment. But before you actually begin to grow that crop, you have to cultivate the earth. You have to plow it and water it and fertilize it. You have to take care of it. The mind is very much like that. Even though it has the potential for enlightenment, because of our dualistic thinking, and because from time out of mind until this point, we've been involved with the delusion of ego as being the central factor, and with the survival idea that is associated with that, and we haven't had time to really adopt the idea of enlightenment as being the primary focus. And therefore, we haven't had time to prepare our minds for that idea. So when we contemplate the 4 thoughts, we are preparing our minds. That is us cultivating the earth of our minds and tilling the fields and fertilizing it and making that field a place where we can grow a crop of enlightenment. The first thing that we have to do, though, is we have to contemplate these 4 thoughts that turn the mind. And Jetsuma says, even a dyed-in-the-wool Buddhist, a person who has taken ordination, who has been a practicing Buddhist all their lives, and whose first teaching was the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, still even for that person, I personally recommend that they practice the 4 thoughts that turn the mind continually, from now until the end of this incarnation, maybe having it be the last thing you think of before you die. So that is why we contemplate the 4 thoughts. Okay. So we're going to be doing contemplation, alternating between contemplation and relaxation. So when we're contemplating each of these topics, you just keep your mind on the topic and roll it around in your mind, chew on it. You know how to chew on something. You try to think of what you want for dinner and you chew on it and you try to see, do I want sushi? Do I want pizza? What do I want for dinner? You know how to stay focused on a topic like that. So you just do that with this topic. When we think about, well, I'll give you guidance as we go through each one, but you just explore the topic and you look at it from different angles. We all know how to do this. We do this all the time with all sorts of things that are really not worth our time, not worth our focus. So we're going to try doing it with things that are worth our focus. So when we're contemplating, keep your mind gently focused on the topic. Just roll it around, look at it from different angles, ask yourself different questions, explore it. This is an opportunity to work with your mind's natural quality of movement. Then we alternate that with periods of rest. Resting the mind in a non-conceptual state cuts the mind's attachment to concepts, its habit of always thinking of the past or future, likes and dislikes. All that thinking is like constantly stirring the water in a muddy pond, never letting it settle and clarify. When we allow the mind to relax in its natural state, we work with the mind's self-seeing or self-knowing quality. And Chagdog Tuku says, when we alternate these two methods, slowly and subtly, our perspective begins to change. What starts as intellectual understanding gradually becomes more personal and experiential. Allowing the mind to rest is an effortless process that reveals an indwelling awareness, an awareness that is non-dual, not a subjective awareness of an object. So when we're contemplating, we're doing something. We're thinking about things. We're analyzing, we're thinking. When we're resting the mind, we're not doing something. We're just letting the mind relax. Don't block it, don't follow it, just let it be. We allow the mind to rest in a spontaneously open space in which thoughts arise and subside. And when you're in that space, all sorts of thoughts will arise and subside because that's the space in which they do that. And that's okay. You don't grasp at them, don't follow them, don't suppress them or push them away. Just let them be and just abide in that space in which the thoughts arise and subside. So when you do these meditations on your own, you should allow the timing of the transitions to be guided by the state of your mind. So when your mind feels full of concepts and stagnant and no longer fresh, you drop the contemplation and relax the mind. And then you only stay in that relaxed state as long as it's truly restful. And when you start becoming distracted and losing your meditation to thought, then you go to the next analytical part of the meditation. And when that gets stagnant, you relax the mind, and so on. But since we're all meditating together, I'm going to use a timer at preset intervals. And we're actually going to do, this is going to be a long meditation. So our class will be ending at 6:30 today. Since we're all, let's see, yeah. So I'm going to do a timer, and I'll guide you as we go along on what you're going to be contemplating. So with this first one, we're going to be contemplating the precious human rebirth. Do you have the freedom to engage in spiritual practice? Are you in a land where you can engage in spiritual practice, where you have access to the Dharma and to the teachings? Are you in a land where your life is in danger for pursuing the Dharma, or is it a place where you're free to practice it? Do you have the physical faculties to be able to read the Dharma? Do you have the mental faculties to understand the Dharma? Do your ears work? Do your eyes work? Can you listen to teachings? Can you read? Can you understand that? Those are all things that are precious. Not everyone has that ability. When we contemplate our precious human rebirth, we're really contemplating the privileges that we have. What kind of privileges do you have that maybe not everyone else has? We have, for instance, we live in a time when the Buddha has appeared and has taught. If we were living in a different time, that wouldn't be the case. We we're living in a time where not only has the Buddha come to the world and given the teachings, but the teachings still survive. If we were born at some other time, that might not be the case. Not only that, but we've taken up the Dharma. And there are a lot of people living in situations where they would be prevented from taking up the Dharma, whether that's because of the society that they live in, the community they live in, the family that they were raised by. They may have been raised with wrong views that makes them believe that what the Buddha taught is wrong, and they'll never open their minds to that. Another thing that makes us a precious human rebirth is the fact that that we have the compassion of a spiritual friend who will help you to understand the teachings. And that would be our gurus. We have gurus who will help us understand the teachings and apply them to our lives. So we have a lot to be fortunate, a lot that really makes us fortunate and that we can feel grateful for. So as you contemplate this, you can ask yourself, what are the freedoms that you have to engage in spiritual practice? And think also about others in your life. Does your family have the same capacity? Does your family have the same opportunities? What about your friends? What about your coworkers? Does everyone have these opportunities to turn their minds to truth, to learn how to let go of their negative habits, to learn how to adopt positive qualities? What are the privileges allow you to do that? And some of those are even more subtle. If you have the ability to, some people's minds are so overtaken by hatred, for instance, they can't really take a moment to consider compassion. So if you even have the space of mind where you're not always in a state of extreme anger, that's a freedom. Because the beings in the hell realms are suffering from hatred in a way that is all-consuming. The animals suffer from ignorance in a way that is all-consuming. They can't think of ways to get out of their troubles. And we have that kind of space in our minds. So that's fortunate. So we can contemplate, so we'll contemplate this. We'll contemplate the preciousness of our human rebirth. And just sit in your meditation posture from before as you contemplate preciousness of your human rebirth and the privileges therein. Now generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. And let the mind rest. I did that a little out of order, so now generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. And now let the mind rest again. Now consider a commitment that you can make in relation to your contemplation. How can you use your precious human rebirth to the fullest? And let the mind rest. Now, formulate a prayer in relation to your contemplation. And let the mind rest again. The next one we're going to do is impermanence. So now contemplate the impermanence of your precious human rebirth. That this opportunity will only last as long as this life is here for. We don't know how long that is. We don't know the day of our death. You can also contemplate the impermanence of the seasons, the impermanence of rulers, the impermanence of power, the impermanence of our own life and those we love, the impermanence of countries and cities, and the impermanence of the world itself, the impermanence of the universe. You can really go anywhere you want with this meditation and look at the impermanence of everything in your experience. Can you find anything that is lasting and permanent? Now let the mind rest. Now generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. And let the mind rest. Now consider a commitment that you can make in relation to that contemplation. And let the mind rest. Now formulate a prayer in relation to your contemplation. And let the mind rest. Next, we're going to contemplate the law of karma. We can contemplate the causes that we are creating now in our lives, what the results of those will be. If we are harming others with our body or our speech or our mind, what are the causes that we are creating? Are we going to enjoy the results of those causes? What are the results? What are the causes that our loved ones are creating? And those around us in our lives, what causes do we see people creating? And what are the results of those? Do we see people killing, stealing, gossiping? Do we do those things? What are the results you would like to have? Would you like to have another precious human rebirth? Would you like to live comfortably and be able to focus your mind on spiritual practice without being distracted by an intense amount of suffering? What are the causes? What are the positive actions that you need to be doing in order to create those results? So we can think like that. You can also think about the results you're experiencing now and what causes you created to have this experience. And let the mind rest. Now consider Generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. Are those you've loved creating the causes of positive results or negative results? Generate compassion. And let the mind rest. Now consider a commitment that you can make in relation to this contemplation. And let the mind rest. Now formulate a prayer in relation to your contemplation. And now let the mind rest. Okay, last one. Now we're going to contemplate the suffering of cyclic existence. We can think about the suffering that we experience in our own lives. We can think about suffering of change, suffering atop suffering, one bad thing happening after another. We think about the pervasiveness of suffering, the fact that all of our comforts come from suffering, come from negative actions that will lead to suffering. We can consider all of these elements. We can consider the suffering of other realms, the suffering of the animal realm, animals that are bought and sold and used for hauling goods, or killed for their meat, or drained for their milk or for their bile. You can think about the suffering of the hell realms, the suffering of the hungry ghost realms, all of these realms of suffering. Just consider wherever you want to go with that. Just consider the pervasiveness of suffering. And let the mind rest. Now generate compassion in relation to your contemplation. and let the mind rest. Now consider a commitment that you can make in relation to this contemplation. Let the mind rest. Now formulate a prayer in relation to your contemplation. And let the mind rest. Okay. Always at the end of our contemplation, remember to dedicate a merit for the benefit of all beings. So we'll do that now. And the dedication prayer is at the end of the opening and closing prayers. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. Thank you, everyone.